So I want to start with the WFEO, Integrating Climate Information, and these are steps 4, 5, and 6. So step 4 um, says we want to interpret climate information. So pretty basic, but our description states that engineers should work with climate and meteorological specialists and experts in order that interpretations of climatic and weather considerations used in professional practice reasonably reflect the most current scientific consensus regarding the climate and or weather information. And this makes sense. We know about climate change or global warming is about the weather, I guess, and how it affects the weather in different areas from a day-to-day standpoint, but the climate interacts the whole entire thing, which meteorologists are super helpful for. And we also get into that in step 5. So to implement this, engineers have a specific rule of thumb to follow. They use historical data so they are able to accurately estimate future climate predictions. So with step 5, work with specialists and stakeholders, I think this ties into step 4 pretty well as far as working with meteorologists. So it states that engineers should work with others, including those who are not engineers, in order to have a full understanding of the implications of climate change and weather on the engineered systems for which they are responsible. To implement this, the ability to recognize others who fall under multiple disciplinary professions encourage a wide range of ideas for engineers to learn and apply their work. Engineering is all about teamwork, and I think in and out of engineering, it's super helpful that in any even engineering firm today, you will have people there who specialize in finance, people who specialize in marketing, and this is kind of the same thing as far as tying in climate change and meteorologists, and that could be archaeologists as far as how the land is doing, and a lot of other different multiple disciplinary professions can help engineers. In addition to this, step 6 states we want to use effective language. So in the description, it states engineers should communicate about climate change adaptation issues and recommendations using simple, unambiguous language. To implement this, the engineer, along with the editor, should read and write for their target audience to understand something easy and as concise as possible. This is extremely important because as serious as climate change is, and we want to make changes. To make those changes, we need to educate the public as well. And to do that, we want to put it in a way where they can understand and easily make those changes. So moving on to our practice guidance, our next step is our plan for service life. Engineers should give reasonable consideration to impact of changing weather and climate conditions over the entire service life of an engineering system. To implement this, paying attention to design adjustments based on climate considerations, economic impact, and full service of life. So we kind of talked about it in our last step, in step 6. So step 7 is basically saying that we want to make this easy for the average person. We want to watch what happens over their lifespan or over an ecosystem's lifespan and see what changes have been made to the climate around them and predict what's going to happen in the future. Step 8 says we want to use risk assessment for uncertainty. Engineers should maintain a reasonable level of professional competence and risk assessment strategies to assess the impact of changing climate on engineered systems where the engineer has professional responsibility. Where the engineer does not have a sufficient level of this expertise, their activity should be reviewed by professionals that do have such expertise. And I think we kind of talked about this even in our last slide, just about using people who aren't even in our own engineering field. I don't know why I put quotes, but just kind of like they can do a multitude of things, and just because they may fall short in one category doesn't mean they fall short in another one. But to this, there is great risk in this research and also in making sure we're educating the public correctly. So to implement this, it just basically states we want to use risk assessment and management over engineers, the general public, and other organisms to ensure safety. In the long run, we know that climate change is happening fast but slow. It's slow to our human eye, but it's happening faster than we think. And then lastly, I just have monitor legal liabilities. So with great power comes great responsibility, and engineers should be aware of any legal liability associated with reliance on historic, climatic, and weather information with their professional practice. To implement this, engineers are responsible for withholding truthful information and understanding that their actions need to be correctly documented and that their data affects the future of our climate and even as well as our society in general. So thank you.